Welcome back to Beyond Chronic Burnout. Today, I'm joined by Emma Treharne, the founder of Nuveya Life and a wellness expert with 30 years of experience. Emma specializes in blending ancient wisdom with modern science to help people move from burnout to balance. In today's conversation, we'll be diving into some powerful topics: how to release unrecognized internal pressure, process trauma, and close the stress circuit, plus the incredible practice of yoga nidra. If you're feeling overwhelmed or stuck, this episode is for you. Let's get started.
Step out of the shadows, feel the power rise, catch the spark inside you, let your spirit fly, beyond the chronic burnout, Carol Jean's your guide, find your steady rhythm, life's joy on the tide, flourish forward, bright and bold. Journey hearts unfold. Power's yours, seek and find.
I am thrilled to introduce and welcome to the show my very special guest, Emma Treharne. She's the creator of powerful programs like Tired to Inspired, The Path to Purpose, and Mindful Leadership, all aimed at helping individuals and teams feel better inside and out. Emma has worked with big names like Wright Medical, Stryker, and Healx, bringing well-being to the forefront of corporate life. Today, she's here to share her insights on everything from navigating internal pressure and unprocessed trauma to the role of yoga nidra in closing the stress circuit. Get ready for a powerful and transformative conversation. Emma, welcome to the show. I am so excited to be here with you today.
Thanks, Carol Jean. That was an amazing intro. Well done.
Even if it takes 2 takes, we get it.
2 or 3, who cares?
I mean, right, whatever. We're here for the fun. We are here for the fun today. But I always love to kick off and start the show because I think one of the biggest places is that most of us, no matter our neurotype, dismiss the stress and keep pushing it to the side, thinking, not even considering, this could be burnout. And by the time we recognize it, we look back and go, oh, wow, that actually was happening for longer than I realized. I just kept normalizing it in my life. And I know that from your perspective and your experience, you've had some of those places. Share with us, when you've had an experience of burnout in your life, how long did it take you to figure it out, first of all? And what did that feel like? How did it show up for you? Like, what were the things that you were doing or saying to yourself as you were like normalizing it?
Yeah, God, hindsight is such a powerful thing, isn't it? And also what I want to normalize is, if anyone is listening to this and has had an experience of burnout, which they now recognize as burnout, chronic fatigue, exhaustion, and they may have had it a second or third time as well, or experienced it a second or third time, that's quite normal. Because, so my experience, I would say I have experienced it significantly, or it's come to a head 3 times in my life, all at different phases, at different places, in different ways. So it manifested and showed itself differently. So I may have recognized it if it showed itself the same way as it had done the first time and the second time, but time 3 was different again. I was a different person. I was doing different things, but there were definitely threads which linked it. So for me, there was inability to sleep. And we know that when we don't get proper sleep, we're going to be very fatigued, and our days are going to be very difficult, and our body is going to be struggling. I had pain in my body. So I experienced things like muscle spasms, migraines, chronic pain over months and then years, actually, which again, we adapt to and we think is normal. I've got an injury. I've worked out really hard. I've been running. I've been lifting weights. Of course, I'm uncomfortable and in pain. irritation, like unnecessary irritation, very quick to anger, or everything seems absolutely fine and then one little thing can go wrong. And I mean a little thing, like I can't get my leg through my jean trousers, for example, and like explosion, frustration, you know.
Oh my gosh, I'm so relating right now.
So there are many things. Coming home from work, having done, so one of the times I experienced burnout, I was running a clinic, I was treating people, I was listening to challenges and problems, and then physically treating people as well. I would take 5 minutes break. I ended up separating my clients for 15 minutes. I used to see back-to-back patients. I would take a 5-minute lie down on my treatment couch, and I would literally go into a deep, deep sleep, which I now know as something, maybe it was yoga nidra, but it was definitely going into those deep brainwave states. I was dropping straight in because I was already a meditator. So I was treating 8, 9, 10 people a day, coming home, falling asleep at the table whilst eating dinner. I mean, not quite with my face in the food, but that sort of thing. No energy to speak to my family at all. Totally lost interest in conversations, lost interest in life, really. You know, there would be weeks where I felt very, very low, and had no motivation. And yet I was still incredibly motivated and getting up out of bed and doing things.
Yes. There's that dichotomy, that
Yeah.
difference that we have, and people see like, oh, you're being so quote unquote productive, but then they see us come home and we're just totally crash
Yeah.
on the backside of it. And you know, and I don't know if this happened to you, but in my relationships, we'd be like, you go and, you know, work all day and do all this stuff and you've got all this energy, and then you come home and then it's like somebody just flipped the switch.
Yeah. Yeah. Turned off the lights. It was like there was nothing left to give at all. Would get chronic migraines, would have to just, oh, we're going to have a family barbecue. I'd be having a migraine, lying down in bed. And, you know, there were other, it's never just one thing. There were other things that were influencing and impacting how I felt as well. So I think for anyone, it can be so many different symptoms that we typically, and this is the common thread, we typically put it down to something else or think it will be better tomorrow. It will be better tomorrow. And we think that for days and weeks.
And it's like, if I can just make it till tomorrow, if I just make it till the end of the week, everything will be fine. It's like what we tell ourselves, right?
Completely. Yeah, I just have to do this. And then, of course, there's another 10, 15, 20 things to just do. Yeah.
Hang on, the dog's starting to bark. So, Emma, how long did it take you to finally piece together, oh, it's not just something else. It won't just feel better tomorrow. What was that moment of clarity or awareness? Or, I mean, it was, sometimes it's gradual, sometimes it hits you like a Mack truck.
Yeah.
What was that realization for you?
I think for me, the first couple of times were gradual. And it was slowly, gently recognizing that how I was feeling was not getting better. It was getting worse. I had, you know, my blood sugar was all over the place. I was shaking uncontrollably. Whenever I ate something, however small a meal, I would want to sleep immediately because all my energy was going into digestion. And so I went to see a doctor. They just diagnosed me with depression. I thought, well, yeah, I do feel pretty low, but I don't think that's the root cause. And so I sort of created a plan for myself. This was in my early 20s, and then in my early 30s. And then again, in my mid 40s, there was an experience of it. And so although I was even in this field, so I also want to normalize the fact that if somebody is a practitioner or a natural healthcare worker or understands these processes, even if you understand the nervous system and how the brain works, how the body works, you can still find yourself in this place of burnout, of giving too much and not recognizing, because there is so much external and internal and societal and cultural pressure.
Oh, thank you for saying that. And thank you for sharing. Because one of the things that I uncovered in my research is that for most adults, and specifically neurodivergent and disabled adults, but this applies across the board more. I have been also investigating, comparing and contrasting the burnout experience with neurotypical population versus neurodivergent population. And that is 3 to 4 cycles of burnout on average by the time someone is in their mid 40s.
Mm-hmm.
That's the average,
Yeah.
3 to 4 times. And now the duration is different and the intensity varies. And that's one of the things that we talk about in the unveiling method. And I love that you brought this into the conversation. Each burnout that we experience is going to be at a different season and a different stage of our life. So certain elements are going to be different within that burnout. But there is also this common thread, this common stress response that once you start to pick up on it and you identify it in the now, you can then in retrospect start to see the pattern of how that one particular element showed up repeatedly through your prior burnouts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's knowledge is power.
It is. Knowledge is power, and understanding yourself, which is one of the things, I specialize in, is helping women understand themselves, how they feel, reconnecting to their bodies. Most of us are very much in our heads, in our thinking minds. And absolutely what you said, that if we experience burnout at different phases and stages in our lives, external circumstances will then be different. So for me, I had different jobs, different roles, different responsibilities. My daughter was at different ages. So she was at first very young, then a teenager, and then actually grown up. And so there are different things that come into our lives, which also informs how we experience the burnout.
100%. And I'm so glad that you are here, because one of the things that is a big energy booster is how we can close the stress circuit. And when we really think about it, energy is electric. And so I love that you use the word circuit. It's kind of like we're wiring our home, our body, right? In how do we open and close circuits? Because electricity has open and close circuits. My husband's a contractor. Y'all know that. So I'm over here speaking in contractor language. But I love that you're bringing in ancient wisdom for modern burnout. How do we go back to the things that as humans, as humanity, for thousands of years, that across cultures we have known, but in modern world we have forgotten? How do we begin to bring these in to really deepen and accelerate our optimum well-being? So let's dive into these first hidden struggles, because I think that's one of the things that happens so often. It's what we always talk about. It's like, it was just hidden. I didn't notice it. I just kept dismissing it. It was everything else in my life. It was, all the stuff. It wasn't burnout. It wasn't chronic burnout related to enduring stress, right? How do external pressures fuel that unseen internal stress? Because I think one of the biggest awarenesses for me was learning and discovering that the world has this set point of expectations. Here it is. It's maybe like at shoulder level. But my internal pressure, and my mom used to say this to me, she's like, Carol Jean, you put so much pressure on yourself. I'm like, no, I don't. What are you talking about? But my expectations, my internal pressure here, because of what I believe the outside world expected, and because I believed through a life of experience and micro traumas and all of the things that the world was somehow telling me this is who I was and my identity, I then said, that's not good enough. It's not safe for me to hit these expectations. My expectations have to be up here so that they're perfect and I'm impeccable, and then I'm worthy and I'm safe. And I didn't recognize the gap that pressure was creating externally and internally at all.
And And it will be different for everyone. But I think what I see is a lot of similarities, and I call it the hidden shame, secret anxiety. There's things that we keep to ourselves that we don't talk about. So people might know it as keeping up with the Joneses, but I mean, I don't watch the news at all. And
Me neither.
Because it's just, it puts, first of all, increases our stress immediately, right? But also there's so much information that we're taking in nowadays. So we're in a modern life. Even when I was growing up, there weren't computers. Well, there were when I sort of went to senior school, but unless you were really tech interested, you didn't have a computer. Everything was handwritten. So the information we received was much less than what we're receiving now, even 20, 30 years later. In fact, the average human now will receive the same amount of information in a day as we would have received in our whole lifetimes. I think 200 years ago, I think that's what the research shows.
Wow. We
And
just got to pause for a second
Yeah,
on that one.
Yeah, we need to understand that we could also blame ourselves with internal pressure, but that internal pressure comes from somewhere, whether it was told to us or whether we perceived that somehow from what we witnessed as young children. We also have something called genetic or emotional inheritance. So our nervous systems are created obviously in utero when we're growing, and the first few weeks and months and years of a baby, then a child's life, our nervous system, how we respond to external and internal stimulus is set. And we can't control that. So what we're also used to then is going to school. The first thing is, we go to school and we are compared. We're graded. It's different in different countries and different cultures, but we are typically graded on our academics. And we are pitted against our peers, so the people in the same class as us. What grade did you get? How many marks did you get right? Can you spell correctly? Can you read? Can you do arithmetic? So immediately there's this internal pressure. I remember my daughter coming home from school at 5 years old, sobbing because they were going to have tests, and she was so worried that she was going to fail. And for her, that meant, what did it mean? I asked her, what would it mean if you didn't get any of the answers right in the test? She couldn't answer me, but she thought it was catastrophic. She thought it was going to be the end of the world. And I don't even think the teachers were saying those types of things. I think it was just how her brain at 5 years old was processing the information that you're going to have a test and you've got to study and you've got to get it right. You've got to know how to spell these words, or it's, and if people are listening to this and thinking, oh, I've never thought about that, it goes back so far. And in our modern world, we never really close the stress circuit. And by that, I mean, stress is good for us, right? We're meant to have a certain amount of stress in our life. It's motivating. It makes us take action. It drives us. It helps us to think and strategize. But when we don't slow down and process and integrate experiences, when we don't close the circuit, we are left in that high state of alert, of awareness consistently. And if people notice this, are you constantly scrolling on your phone? Do you find it hard to go to sleep at night? Do you make mistakes often? Are you multitasking? All of this is somebody whose nervous system is possibly dysregulated, by which I mean your stress system, your stress circuit is open and consistently open. And it actually can feel really uncomfortable to close it and downregulate and go into rest and digest and stop, which is why meditation and mindfulness doesn't always feel good for people and actually feels really unobtainable. And there can be adverse effects to mindfulness, and I can speak to that research if you want, or we can pop it in the show notes or something. But I also want people to know that one of the things that they probably read in How Can I Manage Stress? Have a mindfulness practice, relax, soothe yourself. How can I do that when my nervous system is feeling like in danger? I'm not going to slow down because I'm on high alert. My nervous system is looking for danger. So we need to let our bodies know it is safe to stop. And that can look like different things for different people because everyone is different. So there can be different ways to rest. There are many ways that we can rest and close that nervous system so that our internal stress can be soothed and lowered. Talk therapy, self-inquiry, being part of different groups and programs like we both offer can be really helpful in sharing our experiences and going, holy, I'm not the only one. Okay. And going into it with compassion, because there will be that moment where you go, I can't believe I'm only just finding this out all those years. And there can be a frustration, there can be an anger, there can be internalized anger, rage, frustration, resentment. We can feel resentful that we've been so busy all these years and we've missed out. We can feel resentful that we say yes all the time because we don't feel good enough. We feel less than, we feel afraid and unsafe to say how we really feel. We can feel resentful that we don't know who we really are because maybe there wasn't ever that time, or we weren't encouraged to explore and express ourselves freely. So there are many ways and many paths that we get to this space of this unseen internalized stress, and the external pressure and demands of the outside world is so loud. So loud.
It's so loud, and not only the copious volumes of information that we take in every day. Talk about just that, I call it the info storm. That info storm creates this decision fatigue as well.
Yeah.
And I think one of those external pressures that you talked about, it's something that I uncovered and created a space to allow the information to come in once I started doing interviews in my research process. And as I backtracked, where did the root or the heart of these internalized expectations and pressures and stress come from? And it begins as early as age 4. And the on-ramp to burnout begins around age 4 on average to age 6. And then the first burnout is usually hit between age 6 and age 8, and then the outskirts of age 8 to age 10. But when I started to identify that that was the common space where people started to note or even recall physical signs or, behavioral actions of stress showing up in their early life, in that 4 to 6-year-old window. Education. This is why I'm such a proponent of disrupting our current education system, because it is truly the causation. It is where we are indoctrinated into this habituated productivity and performance model.
Yeah.
Like you described your daughter, I had a very similar experience, and it is this fear and this terror that then tells me, I tell myself, because of the way the world's responding to these performative expectations, that I'm not worthy, lovable, or good enough if I don't meet that metric.
Yeah.
At 4 years old, this begins in preschool. This begins in Mother's Day Out. This begins in those play groups, because parents on the playground are also going, well, is your kid doing this? Is your kid doing this? Oh, my kid's doing this. Well, your kid's over there eating sand. And somehow that's wrong. I'm like, well, they're just exploring the texture. Your kid's just weird because they're not eating sand, But all of those things are those external pressures that we don't even recognize as adults, that we have been conditioned and indoctrinated into this, and these internal unseen stressors that we've been carrying for decades are killing us.
Yeah. And it's what, actually, let's just pause on that a minute because I'm very keen on the pausing. To integrate the information, and there's a reason for that I can talk to in a moment. But it's what is seen as important, isn't it, in life? And we're told what our values should be, what our lives should look like, what we should think is important, what we should strive for. And then we get awards for it and badges for it, and we feel loved and we feel supported and we feel like we belong. And I can't say how I really feel, because if I say how I really feel, I'll get shot down, I'll get shut out, I'll get told I'm weird. And so the reason for these pauses as well, to integrate information, is the way that we truly learn is by having an experience, an activation, and then embedding that information in the different brainwave states. So not in that beta state, which is, there's different beta states, but typically when we're alert and having a conversation and learning something or studying or reading, but down in the alpha state and even into the theta state, right? And to do that, we need to slow down. We need to breathe. We need to feel our bodies. We need to assimilate. And this is also why I think a lot of children and young adults, or even adults my age, our age, aren't learning things and are at capacity, because their brains are so full. And it's seen as lazy to stop and slow down. And one of the programs I facilitate in, actually, part of the learning experience is to, okay, now you've done 40, 45 minutes of learning in a couple of modules, in a couple of videos, you've maybe taken some notes. Now what you're going to do is go and rest and assimilate the information with a yoga nidra or a meditation. And it's part of the program to do that.
Then this was a conversation I had yesterday. So I have just all the happy tingles, as you said. Let's just pause. There's power in the pause. And I think because we have this societal norm and conditioning, and also I think this very deeply embedded trauma response of being the shark and always being in movement, because if I stop or slow down, I'm not safe. And the power in the pause is allowing space for our nervous system to down regulate and to integrate. Because we have this beautiful thing in our brain called the power of the pause, is where it happens. And that is not the, well, some people call it daydreaming, or mind wandering, but it's in that daydreaming or mind wandering and just taking a few breaths that our brain does these beautiful things. It's always working, but it's in that place where we're daydreaming or we're just staring off into space. And somebody says, well, what are you you wasting time, right? You're burning daylight. What are you doing? You're being lazy. Like, be productive, get to it. But it's like, no, that is the most productive place we can be, when we are in that place of allowing that mind wandering to happen, because that is honestly where our brain is solving the problems and integrating the information.
Absolutely, where we can get, that alpha state and theta, the space of intuition or the space of super learning. There's so much research now and science-backed information and data that people can explore, which what I also find helps people feel safe in doing the practices that allow that. So it almost gives permission to, okay, as Simon Sinek says, the power of the why. So this is why I'm doing it, for this particular outcome. So these pauses, and I actually have lots of 5-minute power pauses on my YouTube channel, because I also do know that people are busy and their lives are not structured at the moment to take lots of breaks. And so 5 minutes can be really all you need to begin. And it can actually be very manageable as well. Even 1 or 2 minutes, 30 seconds, 3 breaths. if breathing is okay for you and doesn't elicit a response that is uncomfortable, which I will validate that it does for some people.
It absolutely does. And one of the conversations we had back in Self Care September at the end of the month was with editor-in-chief of Meditation Magazine, Kevin Ellerton,
Mm.
where we went into and talked about trauma sensitive mindfulness, because there is a very unique approach that needs to happen. And I am an instructor in breathwork and meditation, very similar to yourself in mindfulness. And we have to take that into account, because if our nervous system has been up here in the nth degree running on survival mode for so long, the slightest shift or change can feel more threatening and exacerbate and even create, re-traumatizing events for people. So we have to be mindful and aware of those things. And I think that in our current society of, people looking for quick fixes has created some serious problems.
Completely. Yeah. And I just want to add with that, if it's okay, but
Yeah.
Willoughby Britton, actually, Dr. Willoughby Britton does a lot of research. You may have heard of her. Cheetah House is her nonprofit organization, does a lot of research into the adverse effects of mindfulness. And also as a trauma-informed mindfulness and meditation guide, knowing that, and this links with something we've just said and something we might move to, knowing that when people do slow down, and the reason why people can also, or a reason why people can also resist slowing down and down regulating their nervous system, is because of all those things that we haven't addressed, we haven't looked at. We've just done the positive thinking. We've just done that everything's going to be okay. I'm going to keep going. Don't want to, oh, look at that. That's very good. Don't want to, I've heard it called stinking thinking. If you think negatively, negative things are going to happen. And actually it's so important when you can, and in a safe way, to integrate, process, and address those things that are happening or have happened in your life that aren't all rainbows. Doing mindfulness, meditation, tuning into your body doesn't mean to say that you're going to live a life without any challenges or troubles or traumas. And when we slow down, we might meet those things that have happened in the past, or those things that are currently happening that we just don't know how to address. So just to make people aware of that as well, because when we don't address these experiences, our nervous system will know, our body will know. These experiences get stored in various parts of the body at a cellular level, in the fascia, in the tissues, in the cells. And we can wonder why, when we're thinking positively all the time, or even taking proactive decisions like, okay, I've started eating a different diet. Maybe I've reduced sugar. Maybe I'm drinking more water. Maybe I'm seeing my friends more. Maybe I'm going out in the fresh air more, or I'm taking a certain type of exercise. Maybe I have reduced the amount of hours I'm working, and I'm doing all the things that I've been told I should do. And yet there's still this exhaustion, burnout, frustration, sense of anxiety, fatigue, however it's showing up for people. And that can be very frustrating. And I know that. I know that for myself, and I've seen it in many of my clients and people I've worked with over the years and teams. So what I do want to say is the power of the mind is incredibly strong, and the conscious mind, which can process about 40 or 50 bits of information a second, can actually talk to your subconscious mind, which is 1 million times stronger than your conscious mind. So it will drive the show. 95% of what we do, say, think, and act on is our subconscious, these things that haven't been healed or addressed, let's say. And yet, the conscious mind, when we can start to become more aware of these things that are present, our conscious mind can let our subconscious know it's okay to feel. Our subconscious mind will just do what it's told. But it's okay to have negative thoughts or speak negatively, because I don't even use personally the words negative and positive. I just use the word experiences, a range of experiences which we might receive or integrate or view in a certain way. But if there's something you have had happen in your life that you haven't had the opportunity to speak about or feel, allow your body to feel it and move, it's really important that at some stage, in the right environment, being held with a trauma-informed therapist or mindfulness guide or coach, that you allow yourself to do that. And it doesn't have to, you don't have to relive things. It can actually happen very, I don't want to use the word easily, but we don't need to go back into that re-traumatized state, but we can go there if we're not aware of it. So it's always being conscious, that conscious awareness. I hope I made sense when I was talking.
So much. And of course, all the little whiz pops are going off in my brain as you're sharing all of these, because this is something I think is so important to talk about. And it's something that I talk about in the work that I do as well in the research. And as we look into this, there's that universal law of reciprocity. And I love the research work that Katie Milkman does into choiceology. And she's a proponent of embracing the range of experiences, whether you call them positive or negative, because I loved what you said, we bypass the real. And it's like there's this social context that somehow if we are acknowledging the real hard stuff that's happening in our life, that somehow we are complaining or being negative or being the Debbie Downer. And so then people are like, oh, stop it, because we're making them uncomfortable. Well, folks, we are not responsible for how they respond to our real experience.
Yeah.
Number one. And number two, when we feel like we are being silenced for our real experience, and we are silencing ourselves, because it goes from other people silencing us to us then being the silencer of our own voice and our own experience.
Oh, completely. And let's take a pause there to let everyone integrate that and hear that. Who listening to this feels that they're not heard, that they can't speak their truth, that maybe they don't even know what their truth is anymore? That's also a very normal experience to have. And when we can't express ourselves effectively, or when people shush us, we might do it ourselves to other people. Oh, they're there. Oh, don't be upset. Don't cry. Oh, it'll get better. Well, it's not that bad. Oh, it could be worse. All those things, all those platitudes we offer to people or have been offered to us, shut us down. And so then we mask. We mask how we feel. We mask our experience. It doesn't feel safe to share. So often when someone shares something with me, I don't feel the need to offer a solution or to say it'll get better or to say it could be worse. One of the most helpful things we can do for ourselves and each other is just to say, that sounds really hard. Tell me more.
Oh, we got to pause on that one. That sounds really hard. Tell me more.
Mm. And let them speak. Yeah. Especially with children as well. We want our children to be happy and excited and enjoy life. We want to protect them. Life is life. And so saying, just try this actually. If anyone's resonating with this, try it. If your child, however old they are, whether they're small or whether they're grown, come to you with something that is not going well, or they don't know how to deal with something, or they're frustrated or anxious or angry about something, let them speak. Don't fix it. Don't offer a solution. Hold that space for them to use all of their words, whether they've got the words or not. Maybe it's sobbing, maybe it's silence, and see what unfolds, see what happens, see how the energy of that interaction happens. Same at work. If one of your team members comes to you, and normalizing asking people, how are you really? It's so powerful.
I heard a question that a teen counselor had shared in an article I had read a couple of years ago, and it so deeply resonated with me. And the question is not how are you doing, or how was school today, or how was work, but how is your heart?
Mm-hmm. How does your heart feel today? Mm-hmm.
How's your heart? Because that really, you pause in that, because number one, it's not the rote response of how's school, oh, fine. But it makes you check in and turn inward and go, well, how is my heart? Like physical heart, or feeling heart, experience heart? Because I think that really comes to the place where we are most energized and where we feel the most connection. And in my research, belongingness is the number two, it's the number two biggest energy drainer after authenticity. And those culminate in that number one biggest energy drainer, which is when we do not have a sense of internal emotional safety and self-trust. And that all comes back to the unprocessed experience and trauma, because we're all seeking to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. And I think when we're so busy bypassing the real for our own comfort, or feeling like we don't want other people to be uncomfortable, so we're just trying to fix the problem instead of just really pausing and listening and allowing someone to share their real, true experience.
Yeah.
But we then come into this unprocessed experience and trauma.
And I'm thinking in the yogic philosophy, in the Vedic philosophy, in the text, and we can bring this from ancient to modern. We would talk about samskaras, little grooves, patterns of behavior or belief or tendencies to respond or act or think in a certain way that get deeper and deeper and deeper, because the body likes patterns. The brain works in patterns. That's how we learn and behave. And so we might call it neural patterning in the modern terminology. And so to repattern or break the patterns or reform patterns, it needs consciousness. We need to be aware of behaviors. We need to be aware of how we feel. We need to be aware of what's unfolded before or now. And then this is where the yoga nidra that I was going to talk about comes in to help us process the unprocessed experiences, because they are deep within. I said they're held within the body and the mind, but they're held in certain parts of the brain as well. And when we're in burnout, we often can't access different parts of the brain, different memories. So that's why we might, forget words. So we might not be able to access certain Broca's region of the brain. So our words don't come out right, or our memories, the hippocampus isn't activated. So it's activated, but we can't access it. It's disconnected. There's a disconnect. And so reconnecting all of those parts of us is so vital. And I love what you said about the belongingness, because a lot of people that I speak to, and myself included, and I don't know if you can relate to this, is that feeling like we don't belong, like we're not part of something, that we're different. And I speak a lot about belonging and feeling like being at home, feeling understood. Many people talk to me, and I've had this experience myself, of feeling completely misunderstood. But could it be also possibly that I wasn't sharing who I really was with people? So of course I was misunderstood because they were receiving a certain part of me. And also maybe there's, certain people that we don't go deep with because there's not that safety. So that, again, it's multifaceted, but I love to talk about, and I've seen the impact that this has, that when we start asking for help or share how we're feeling or ask people to just listen, because sometimes people need to be shown what we need, people are quite willing to do it. The people that are truly going to stay in our lives are quite willing to do it. And then they get to know us better. We get to share and express who we are. They get to do the same. Our friendships, relationships, whether they're at work or at home or in a family environment, get deeper and closer. We understand each other more effectively. And so we do get that deeper sense of belonging, being accepted and being understood. And that can go a long, long way to repair our physical body, our emotional body, our spiritual and mental body. And there we go. Can really help close that stress circuit in a way that feels manageable and attainable.
How do we begin the process of closing that stress circuit, Emma?
So if you're going to be doing this by yourself and not reaching out for any help and support, I typically recommend, and again, it depends on what somebody has experienced and what they're coming with, how their mind works, how they interact with the world. But things like small, I mentioned this earlier, 5-minute pause practices, something that's recorded. So they kind of are doing it with someone. They can just press play and find 2 or 3 times in the day, set an alarm on your phone, put it in your calendar if you're someone that works in that way, and you stop for 5 minutes and you allow yourself to be guided by that pause. And the pause is really just coming to the body, feeling the feet on the ground or your back on the chair, beginning to notice how your body feels. Maybe your body is tense, activated, and can we invite a little bit of softening on the out breath? Can we allow the shoulders to move slowly away from the ears? Can we allow the breath to move downwards towards the belly? Perhaps the belly feels tight and we just notice. We don't try and change it, but can we invite our belly to soften? So very simple pause practices. And if people don't like coming into the body, they could just focus on the breath. If they don't like the breath, they could focus on sounds. If they don't like focusing on sounds, you could focus on a visual. You could look at something. I have a crystal here. You could just sit and look at the crystal and become really curious about how it looks. You could go for a walk. Optic flow. Allow your eyes to move across, whether you're in an urban environment or a nature environment. That can help reset the brain and the nervous system. So there are many simple practices that can fit into your day. So the reason I start with those is because it doesn't have to be disruptive. It doesn't really have to disrupt your day. And if you're someone that likes to write things down, you might keep a little journal, whether it's on your computer, on an Excel file, if that's what you like, or whether it's written. How did I feel before? How did I feel afterwards? Did I have easier conversations? Did that problem I have suddenly the solution or the creative idea come into my brain? What changed? How did my body feel? And then after that, I do recommend working with somebody, because honestly, trying to come out of burnout yourself, it's like trying to give yourself more energy when you have no energy left to give. So finding someone that you know, like, and trust, whether it's a one-on-one situation, which can be really helpful for the first 3 to 6 months. And it does take at least 3 to 6 months to change habits. I know people say that habits change in 21 days. They don't. It takes a long time we've taken a long time to get to this point. So it takes a long time for our nervous systems to realize what's going on and to integrate these new behaviors.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Um,
But it's possible and it happens. We just have to be
totally possible.
gentle and allow the space for it.
Yeah. Allow the space for it, commit to it, a lot of what I find as well is that even committing to something can be really tricky for people because they don't feel worthy. So that's why a group program can be really helpful, because you are surrounded by others walking this path with you. You know you're not alone. You feel safe to speak and talk and listen to others. So you learn the way of doing that. There are lots of small things that people can do. And again, it's very unique to that individual. I like to see what somebody's life looks like, what their habits are like at the moment, what their family dynamics are like, what their work life is like. But within a group program, you will be taken through stages and phases. You'll be held in the repatterning, in the reprogramming, in the gathering back of your life and your energy.
Yes. One of the most powerful places that I have found in community and in group work in particular has been, we can set the intention and we can be agreed with ourselves that this is what I'm going to do. And we have this very linear layout in our mind of this is how it's going to go. Point A, point B, point C. I'm going to get to here. I will arrive. Everything is good. And it is an up and down journey. There are moments in there where it is hard as heck. And there were moments for me because I was slow. Y'all know I did not pick up on the fact that I needed other people. It took me a minute to get there. And I think it was my nervous system had to regulate internally to allow that. But I was trying to do it all by myself. And in the early days when I was doing this a decade ago, I felt when those hard places came, or the places where I didn't have the perspective to see a different way to approach a challenge or a problem or anything I was facing in my life, I would get really discouraged. I would get frustrated. I would get angry. I would feel, oh God, just one more thing I'm failing at, or I'm just not worthy enough. I'm not good enough, not on a conscious level, but the feeling of that subconsciously that I'm just not really good enough to get it. It's not working for me.
Yes, not working.
And in group and in community, I have been held and supported and seen, heard, and understood in a collective pause, and also known I wasn't alone because somebody else was usually being challenged in a similar way. And then there was this place of, we can do this together. Because it wasn't just me focusing on it for myself. It was me holding space and being with another person in a similar space to go, let's do this together.
Yeah, completely. And something else just came to me, and I think it's gone out of oh no, it's come back into my brain. Well done, Emma.
I love how that works.
There was the pause, and it was allowed to come back in. There's a model that I use in one of my courses, in a couple of the courses actually, which is the stages of change model. And we talked about external and internal pressures and societal pressure, and you'll know this, right? That society would have us say, oh, you go from your comfort zone to your growth zone. So you just want to change something, you just have to do the action and you go straight into growth, and it's new habits. You're living the new way of life and everything's hunky-dory, no problem. When they forget the two bits in between or more, that there's, in positive psychology, they call it the fear zone. I like to call it the space of the unknown. I think it sounds nicer. And then there's also the the learning zone where we're integrating. And like you said, it's not linear. Again, then it's like, well, then it's linear. No, you can be in all of those places at once, or you can be in one or two or three of them, go back into the comfort zone. You can come all the way to the growth zone, go back into the space of the unknown, and a little bit in the learning zone. We are always in all places at once, because our life is multifaceted. So knowing that, I think, helps people a lot as well, because also there's this belief, the lies we tell ourselves that, well, I should just choose to do a behavior and change it. And then once I've done it, I'll have the thing and it'll all be better. and we can't just magic it like that.
Oh, damn. Really?
I know. Although yoga nidra is really quite magic, so I'm going to talk about that now.
Thank you for sharing that insight, Emma, because those stages of growth, experience, integration, adaptation, adoption, and as we move through that process, it is this fluid place. And I always think of it as sort of the ocean waves at the shoreline. And we are constantly pulling things in, pushing things forward, cycling through. We're pausing in between the waves. I mean, it is everything all at once. And it's okay. That's actually the natural way and flow of it.
Yeah.
When we acknowledge that and allow space for that to be, ease moves it.
Yeah, the natural ebb and flow of life is such. It moves in and out like the breath.
So share with us about yoga nidra. This is something I have fallen in love with over the last year. So do shine and sparkle some light on what is it? How do we do it? Give us all the goodness.
So yoga nidra is a form of meditation, but it differs from meditation. It's a very ancient practice from the Yoga Sutras, from the yogic tradition. It's seen in other cultures and places and indigenous spaces around the world. The Aboriginal culture also has a dream time. I believe some of the North American cultures also have dream time or dream space. But it's a systematic process of moving through the layers of the self. It's a guided process, either guided by a guide or guided by yourself, typically by a guide in the Western world. And it takes you down through the different brainwave states from beta to alpha to theta, sometimes even into delta, when we can get into this experience of yoga nidra, which is wakefulness whilst we're asleep. So we're at this level of sleep. The brain is still sleeping and resting, but there is a certain level of consciousness. And people report to me that it just feels beautiful and effortless, feel like they're floating. There isn't time, or maybe we'll do another podcast on the whole experience and the history of yoga nidra and the different koshas, the different layers of the body, of the self. But no, I think what's important to know is that in yoga nidra, we typically lie down. You can sit up, but you're typically in a very comfortable, prone position. You can lie on your side, whatever. The aim is to stay awake, but often if we're in sleep deficit, you may drop into a deep state of sleep. And some people say, how was that half an hour? I thought it was 3 minutes. But there will be part of your brain, there will be part of your unconscious or subconscious, or both, that are awake and aware. And in yoga nidra, we work with a sankalpa, which is really your heart's desire, or we can call it a positive intent, a positive statement. So it might be something like, if you're working with someone who doesn't feel good enough, we might say, as we go into the yoga nidra, I am enough. And then we're doing that in the sort of beta alpha state. And as we go down into theta and delta, we implant that affirmation, the sankalpa, again. So the guide will say, and repeat your sankalpa, I am enough, 3 times again. So what we're doing is we're speaking to the subconscious, and we are effortlessly repatterning, reprogramming what we were talking about through this podcast, those patterns of behavior and belief that keep us in that active state, that keep us moving forward, that keep us productive, that keep us thinking the same things that we always have done, that we had no control over, because as you so correctly said, it began when we were so little to be programmed in a certain way. So one can expect to hear the guide invite a sense of connection to the body, the breath, sound, so all the senses, to move through a rotation of consciousness of the body. People might know it like a body scan or a body awareness invitation. And then some guidance into sensations, so starting to connect to certain movements of energies within the body, which feels so blissful, or can feel blissful. It doesn't always, of course. And then we're gently brought back up and out of that state. Yoga Nidra is being researched quite a lot at the moment, actually. So it's also known as non-sleep deep rest. Now, Yoga Nidra isn't just non-sleep deep rest. Non-sleep deep rest might be also hypnosis. Yoga Nidra is its own form of experience, and it is an ancient practice, which we honor. But there's lots of research to show that 30 minutes of Yoga Nidra is like having 2 sleep cycles. So if someone is in sleep deficit, they can really repair and heal, because we know that the body heals on an emotional and physical level in sleep. So it can really help to reset the nervous system. It can help to increase serotonin levels. It can help to decrease the stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline. So it's a beautiful practice. I suggest that people practice it. One of the things I suggest that people do is to practice it before they get out of bed in the morning. So if you are waking up groggy, exhausted, not knowing how you're going to get through the day, I would pop on maybe a 10 or 15 minute Yoga Nidra and lie there and absorb it before you get out of bed in the morning. Or if you are someone that works from home and you can take 15 minutes, you could do it late morning, early afternoon, instead of that cup of coffee, which is just going to keep the caffeine levels up and would maybe impact your sleep later on. I don't always recommend it just before you go to bed. I would recommend a different type of Yoga Nidra, because some people find it very hard to go to sleep after a Yoga Nidra, because they do feel so rested, or at least their body feels rested. But there are different types of Yoga Nidra which keep you down into the theta state, so you might drift off into sleep, and you can find some of those on YouTube. So it's a beautiful ancient practice which we are so lucky to have and to understand. And I feel so blessed and privileged to be able to teach Yoga Nidra, both as a guide and on a course on the transformational sleep Yoga Nidra teacher training, which is part of the School of Living Yoga. So yeah.
Oh, Emma, I am so thrilled to have had you on the show today, and all of the beautiful wisdom and insights that you have shared with everyone. Thank you so much. So y'all can go over to Emma Treharne, Treharne, over on YouTube, and discover her channel. Try those powerful pause meditations for 5 minutes. Dive in and try a Yoga Nidra instructional section. And if you are looking to connect with Emma, where would you like people to find and connect with you?
The best place for people to connect to me is either on LinkedIn, if you're on LinkedIn, or send me an email, emma@emmatreharne.com, or any of the ways that Carol Jean will put underneath this episode, whatever's easiest for you. But LinkedIn and my email is probably the best way to get hold of me.
So good. So good. Thank you so much for being here today and joining us for this amazing conversation on Beyond Chronic Burnout. I hope you feel energized and ready to take on the challenges ahead. Remember, you are not alone in this journey. Let's stay connected. Follow me on Instagram at Carol Jean Whittington, where you can join our Beyond Chronic Burnout channel for personal messages from me each week, and subscribe to the podcast for more conversations and burnout insights. Together, we'll continue to break out of burnout and unlock our authentic selves. Until next time, this is Carol Jean signing off. Stay compassionately curious, my friend.
Thanks for being here. It's been quite a ride. Energy mastery, let's turn the tide. Top shelf guests, dropping wisdom bombs. Join us next week where the energy's strong. Beyond chronic burnout, we're breaking free.